we talk about on our call about individuality, but in reality, in the society, individuality is a dangerous concept because it means you're out of step with the collective. See, it's all about positioning and a mindset. Whatever your mindset, you might be saying one thing, but then what we talk about is another, theoretical versus practice. It's called enigmatic versus pragmatic. What's practical and what is impractical or theoretical. See, theoretical is nice, but you see if it's like the pet peeve with me is that I give knowledge, but it's not applicable sometimes. And people get upset with that because they always want to apply everything. There for a while, a few decades ago, they were making everything applied in terms of books, applied mechanics, applied science, all this application business. But see, the irony of that was when you read those books, about 2 pages into it, you had to have a PhD to understand what's going on. You had to know the jargon. So it's just a game of saying things versus practice. And just like I'm talking about when Americans talk about separation of church and state, which is disestablishmentarianism, but in practice they do anti-disestablishmentarianism. The proof is at the last inauguration, they have a minister that gives a prayer invocation. So what does that mean? See, if they're doing that sort of thing, then what are you doing in practice versus what you say? See, it's the old saying, practice what you preach,
Mhm.
right? And if you're not doing that, and people really aren't paying attention, that's why they get away with these things. They just go, yes, go ahead, please.
Um, Grantham, can you say more about your belief or the idea of church and state being separate and why it's important?
Well, in reality, we, I have to revert back to my Tibetan Lama teachers. They were talking about eyes closed, esoteric, eyes open, exoteric, to be a separation of the inside and the outside. Now, I heard that, but then I'm not really into that. I'm into the eyes open exoteric because that's what we're dealing with on a daily basis, and we need to address that particular world called the existence world. The existentialists call it existentialism of existence. But the problem with existential individuals, they are mostly atheists, which I'm not an atheist. I think that's problematic when you don't think there's a supreme deity. So in reference to this this whole idea of sight recognition and seeing with your eyes, is we're seeing into our world here, and that needs to be addressed. What's in it in our society that needs to be addressed that maybe is imbalanced or maybe problematic? I think that would be we're giving solutions and tools in our calls to allow people to have wealth and health and my 4 pillars of health, sovereignty, solvency, and AP and Chetto. And the last one is not sacrificing people for money, having people above money, people that are more important than money. But in our society, we know that doesn't exist. Now, again, I just said a minute ago, what I'm talking about is theoretical because what I'm saying is it's not necessarily in practice. And again, I'm giving knowledge. People seek knowledge. Everybody on this call, everybody that's listening is seeking information, knowledge of interest, and not some claptrap stuff that they're trying to sell you something. Now, to be candid, we're doing that too. We're salesmen too because we're trying to sell advertising with YouTube. So that's why we can give an appeal. I can do it now. Oh, please subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe.
Yes, we're begging you. I'm trying to raise money for the Institute, the Omnivergence Institute. So people tell your friends and neighbors, and this is my sales pitch. We'll do it periodically in the videos. I haven't done that. You're the one at the very end that gives a subscription, though. So
Mhm.
we're trying to raise money for the Omnivergence Institute. That's very important, and we talk about that throughout the calls. and so we can do some really advanced research that they're really not doing now. It's more of a they call it I call it, well, I don't call it that. It was Olof Johansson. He wrote the book, The Big Computer. And by the way, it was Henry David Thoreau said that people practice quiet lives of desperation. Remember, I said yesterday it was Hawthorne, but I will fix things, folks. I will do the research, so don't pick on me too much. You can do whatever you want. People will anyway. Mostly they're flux innocent adultiplicators.
Can I go back, please, to my question about why it's important for the church and state to be separate? And you started answering it, um, and you talked about the
The esoteric
eyes
exeter.
open and eyes closed.
Right,
But
that's right.
are you able to say more specifically what the problem would be, or what problems it causes, or uh, why it's not a good thing for church and state to be together?
Well, it's confusing, first off, because when you have religion and you have your outside existence, like when people go to their mosques or churches and what have you, that's not really what they're doing in practice. You're not doing religious things necessarily in practice, not necessarily. I mean, they have that idea of the golden rule, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is a very good thing, the golden rule. I think that's what they teach to have a good life. But inside that church, they're trying to deal with God and the God, not necessarily the cosmos. The cosmos would be more of existence type thing. So, in my opinion, those things should be separate. And to most theologians, they agree with that. See, so it's made to homogenize it, to galvanize it, to put it in one big grab bag. I think it's confusing, unless you have God and your day-to-day living separate from that. I mean, it would seem like you would want to combine it, but in reality, I don't think there's liberation in spirit with that in the physical worlds. But I don't really have anything to do with that other than I'm aware of some of it, but I don't, the only factor that I know is that man is doesn't exist forever. And so where does he go? I mean, the religions talk about the eternal essence, and one is forever, everlasting. And I believe that, but I don't really know about it. So that's why I don't really talk about it here, because most people are not interested. They're more interested in, not to say people aren't interested in that. I'm just saying that right now people probably need more money. Don't you think everybody needs some cash, right? Cold, hard cash. Grantham, get us some dough.
Yes,
Okay, I
please,
will.
Grantham. Get me some dough.
Get you some dough, right? A lot of term for that too. And not the kind you make with bread. Well, it could be called bread too. All these slang terms for money.
Yeah,
But
no,
anyway,
I'd be very disappointed if you gave me a load of flour and
look
water.
for flour and water, my cement pancakes.
Yeah.
And uh, yes, let's have some Grantham cement pancakes. Well, we give a recipe for it on the videos for cement pancakes. It's really easy, folks. Just put flour and water together and you're making plaster. Trust me. A little butter and syrup, and you won't be able to cut it with a knife, though. You might be able to get a jackhammer out and take care of it that way. Oh, anyway. What is it? That's Grantham's jackhammer. Okay. He has a jackhammer in his back pocket. Not true, I don't. Just kidding. I got to be careful with the videos when I say something. Does he really mean that?
Grantham, in the last video, you were talking about portality, and I wonder if we could go into more specifics about how, as individuals, we achieve that, or is it just a matter of changing the concepts that we have?
Oops, I went off here.
Yeah. Is it just a matter of sort of, I think you were saying that it's because in our present day, and especially in the West, we have this concept of people just living to about 100. Um, so how do we as individuals work towards that portality?
Well, first off, it's a concept, and we live by concepts. We live by ideas and what we're taught in our conditioning in the first 2 years of our life. And the idea of living longer than 100 years, the 100-year limit was the Greco-Roman concepts. The Greeks talked about in their writings that very few people live past 115 years old. Now, if someone was 115 now in the West, they would consider that probably the oldest person. But in the Far East, they're much older than that. And I spent time with these people, these elder statesmen, so to speak, these elders in the East. These Tibetan lamas are ancient. And there's no reason why you shouldn't because they don't have a concept for less. See, so it's all in a concept. And that's what we're teaching here is we're trying to expand concepts with people and not be limited to the mortality in a short period of time and portality, which could be lengthier. Go
So,
ahead, please.
so first and foremost, we just need to change the idea that we have, and we have change that to a belief that we can live for hundreds of years.
Right, that's right. We have to have a change the concept. That's how you change your mind and you change your world. And that's we live by that. We live by our concepts and we champion our ideas. We stand behind our ideas. We fight for our ideas. We don't give up easily on our ideas. But if a new idea comes in and you consider it better than what you're doing, then you might change. It just depends on a person's individuality in reference to hanging on to different ideas that may not be correct. And I'm saying may not be correct because it's all individual. I have individual views, you have individual views, and we learn how to tolerate each other's viewpoints. You see what I mean? Because we're entirely different individuals, nary the twain will meet. I had a good friend and we were talking about that several months ago, but we gleaned the fact that we need to compromise. We need to get to common ground. That's why they call it common law, because you got to get to the table and agree to the common ideas between us that are workable in our social life, in our marketplace. We have to get into agreement. Otherwise, we're in antithesis, which is an argument. It's a warlike situation. We don't want to do that. We want to be in a peaceful situation. There's no reason why we shouldn't do that and practice it too. And that's the issue of the exoteric life is pursuit of happiness versus the actual practice of it. So it can be fleeting, but then remember we said yesterday it's in the practice of doing, and we're in a constant state of doing, although that might be tedious to us, we learn how to accept it. Remember, I call it divine futility. That means it's okay because it's divine. It's a great feeling to do outside the supreme deity, so to speak, because I think that's our responsibility to do things, and we will do it anyway. But when we step back and take a look at that, that can help balance our psychology too, in reference to that it's okay to do things, and it's not tedious, it's not harmful, it's a very good thing to do. So yes, please.
Uh, Are you, when you say to do things, do you mean to take action in life, to engage with life? Is that what you mean by to do?
Yes, and we do anyway, but at the same, and see, the limitations of logic is it's a struggle for logic. That's why I do this, folks. And what is he doing? Well, Grantham Taylor Hughes, there was a rumor that Grantham Taylor Hughes speaks in tongues. We're wondering who started the rumor. Well, I did. Grantham started the rumor. Well, where do all rumors start? Well, Grantham Taylor Hughes. He starts all the rumors, right? We're always trying to find the origin of rumors, right? So now we know I'll take the responsibility for that. I start the rumors. I apologize for doing that. And it's true that Grantham Taylor Hughes does speak in tongues.
So,
Oh my.
so we were talking about
Yes.
mortality, and we need to first and foremost change the concept. But are there any other steps after that? We've changed
Uh,
the concept. We've got this idea. it's clear in our minds that we can live way beyond 100 years. What other things do we need to do?
Oh, you mean what you're pushing for practice, I can tell. Now
Yeah.
come on, what's the practice of it? Well, that's the whole point. I don't know if things are practical. I think mostly it's just theoretical concepts that we're always dealing with. And then we say, well, what's here in our workaday world? What's the manifestation of what we're actually doing? And people will argue, philosophers will argue, well, it doesn't really exist. It's an illusion. And Oppenheimer, I told you, he said the only reason why I have reality in front of us is spinning so fast that you see it as reality. So the question is, what is reality in terms of our practice and practical world? Even when but if you can reach out and you pound on the table like this, or take off your shoe and hit it like Khrushchev did years ago, it's solid. But so are you as a physical body. You would consider that reality, correct? And I do. I'm not being silly about that because everybody, come on, Grantham, you know what reality is. Quit being foolish. You see what I mean? So people wax that concept, but then they don't get into the details of all the why, how, what is it type thing. They don't get into the details because they don't want to bother with the details. They just want to make more money to buy their toys and get their Ferraris and Rolls Royces and stuff, which is not a bad idea, in fact, folks. My favorite car is the Rolls Royce anyway. But I do like my back. Anyway, you see, so it's a continuity factor, you see, and to make things practical in terms of concepts, well, we know that we will do it anyway, whether we question it or not. It's made manifest, but then we like to know what that creation's about because we quizzically are interested in that idea. And then, excuse me, when people realize that they're the creators, that's a big responsibility that they don't really want to do. And then you look at the word responsibility, the ability to respond. You see, it's not necessarily replyability, responsibility. It's ability to respond. So when they say reply, they really should be saying response. What is your response to your workaday world in reference to its reality? So again, we take that for a secondary cause. We take it for granted. You like that granted? Yes, my name is Grantham. You can take it for granted.
Mhm. Very good. So, Grantham, are you kind of saying that once we change the concept, we have this concept of portality, that we will automatically, without having to think of what steps or actions to take, we will just automatically because we've changed the concept, we'll automatically do what's necessary to get us towards that longevity.
Great minds think alike. The word automatic is right. As soon as you change the concept, it will change your world. That's why people are nervous about changing their ideas. They want to hang in there to their reality. They don't want to shift their reality. So you're right. When we change the concept, it'll automatically manifest. Now, when is the question? It's like people use the yantra and they might be picking on me about, I didn't get rich in 9 minutes. I said, well, it might take 18 minutes. It might take two times. So you might try twice and not just one. You see, so there is discipline in our world. And remember you said about the when factor, the timing factor, I think is significant for people because people want things immediately. They they uh, they don't want to wait for things. There's a lot of impatience with that. There's a term I'm seeking and I can't remember it now, but it doesn't matter. The idea is that we want to learn how to practice things. And remember, we said a minute ago about the doing factor. So when we do these disciplines, and it's not like we're doing a lot, we're only talking about 9 minutes of yantra work every day. I mean, look at the discipline of 8 hours every day, 8 hours work. That's a tremendous discipline in itself. But is it something that you're wanting, or are you getting satisfaction in creating your empire with it? Are you making enough money in reference to your workaday world? I mean, to me, it's never enough because people just want more all the time and continually get more. And where does it end? Well, it doesn't really end. It's a continuity. It continues on and on because it's unlimited. there's an illimitable situation involved with having no limits to things. People think there are limits, but really they're not. So it is an automatic doing, which I really appreciate you using that term. I was thinking it when you said that. I was about ready even to say that. So it's really great. Great minds think alike, as I say. And I think we're all great minds. We all think alike, but then again, we're all individual. We all give an individual view of our world, and we have to tolerate and allow for that world. We don't have to agree to it, but I think a toleration of people's experiences and what they're talking about is extremely important.
Mhm. And wouldn't it be boring if we all agreed completely? Wouldn't life be so boring if everyone was on exactly the same page?
Yeah, I've heard that idea before, but since it's impossible, don't really talk about it much. I mean, the possibilities of everybody agreeing it's not a marginal efficiency. If remember, I don't really believe in 100%. Even statistics will talk about 98% of a sampling, which is their limit, and 2% of any type of practice or any type of exercise is the fallout of the whole thing. You can't get to 100% in anything, but people seek 100%. They seek efficient efficiency, but remember Keynes talked about a marginal efficiency. We're probably best getting to the ceiling of a C average with 70%, but pushing towards 100%, then it becomes OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is pushing for 100% and then some. You just keep being obsessing over things. I think that's an imbalance. I think people are obsessed, are wanting help, but then I'm trying to say, well, if you're agreeing to your obsession and it's okay, then whatever you're doing that would be considered eccentric is your business. See, it's not our place to really judge people unless they're having issues, emotional issues with things. Then you can address it. But that's why people seek help because they may be obsessed with their life or obsessed with some so-called addiction. I wanted to talk about that too, this whole addiction business. Remember we were talking the other day that it's really about getting attention.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Please carry on. I'm interested to hear more.
Well, I think my view is we're our manifest life, you see us here, we see you and I here, we're needing a modicum of attention. So we need to have attention in order to perform. See, what's the point of living if you're not showing off a little bit? You're showing we want to do the best we can. That's why when we're talking about wanting more, we want more beauty, more life, more of everything, because I think that's the state of our essence anyway, is to keep moving. We're on the move. The cells are on the move, so we're on the move. So in that motion, yesterday or I think on Tuesday, or Wednesday, I said something about we didn't do the intro to what day it was or the date, right?
It's okay. I'll write the date on the screen somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, we just jumped in there, didn't we?
Yeah. It's all right
Oh,
though.
we did. Oh yeah, because you were started recording right away. It was very different. Anyway, I'm trying to create tradition here, folks, but let's throw the tradition out the window. Help! I need a parachute if I'm going to be thrown out the window. And I wasn't going to throw you out the window, just your concepts. But that's
Let's
the same thing.
let's just go
I
with
have
the
my
flow.
concepts. Yeah, go ahead, kid. Sorry.
Just go with the flow. No beginning, no middle, no ending.
Oh yeah, there is no ending to anything. But there is a place where you can rest. You got to sleep occasionally, correct? I'm always saying that's the biological entity needs rest. No matter what you think, you can't continue on without sleep. They did a Star Trek thing about not dreaming, where they weren't dreaming, and everybody was really messed up because when you sleep, you're supposed to dream, and there's another activity going on there that and without that activity, then you're exhausted. You wake up without any rest because there's no inside practice, inside motion. So it's all a state of motion someplace. And that becomes difficult for people because they don't really want, they want to stop. They want to They want to get into the middle and or quit. They want the stop sign, folks. You see a stop sign, right? Or in England, they call it the full stop with the period at the end of the sentence. They call it a full stop. They don't use, the word period is an American term in literature and what have you, in grammar.